It is a huge honor today to bring back orthodontist Bruce McFarlane from Winnipeg, Canada, who's lecturing today. We're in Phoenix, Arizona at the Henry Schein Orthodontic Symposium where you've been invited to speak. And these are the biggest whales in orthodontics. So congratulations on being on that program. Being from Canada, was it hard to get here coming over the wall or is that on the other border?
Howard, it's such a pleasure to hang with you again. No problem. It seems America's concern is more to the south. But,
more to the south.
They still seem to like Canadians.
If I was Canada, I would build a wall to keep out crazy-ass Americans. I think
we have a fair number coming through lately, so yeah.
And we have a very common best buddy.
Yes, Claudia
Lovato. Big shout out to Claudia.
Hey, Claudia.
And Zach, you should say hi to Claudia. She loves you too. So it seems like the things that you are most passionate about is Invisalign, and another speaker, orthodontist from Spain, Luis Carrier.
Yes.
You pronounce it Carrier?
Carrier, yes.
But it's spelled C-A-R-R-I-E?
I-E-R-E.
Oh,
yes.
I-E-R-E?
Correct.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, Luis. Us English people are so difficult with the second language. And Propel. So let's start with Invisalign. So it seems like on Orthotown, most orthodontists say it's about 15% of their practice. Would you say that's about the average orthodontist with Invisalign, about 15%?
Yes. At this moment, Howard, that seems to be the average orthodontic practice, yes. But in my practice, it's a much greater percentage. And I have
how much greater?
Probably about 30% now. And we're expanding into teens and also into the mixed dentition as well with Invisalign, which is very exciting. And I actually have a second office in Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is on the west shore of Lake Superior. And I only do Invisalign there. I do no braces.
Michigan.
Right, so Duluth, Minnesota is just to the south of that city.
So I got a Thunder Bay story. You have an office there. I have a Thunder Bay story.
Come on.
If I tell you, you won't even believe the story.
I won't believe it.
I shouldn't tell it because everything is on. So I just started lecturing. It was in the early 90s. I think I started lecturing in 90. Anyway, long story short, they got 11 foot of snow.
Yes.
And so I called the day before my flight's takeoff and said, okay, so obviously it's canceled. I go, why? I said, because you got 11 feet of snow. And they go, you'll be fine. So we fly in, and the cab driver's taking me from the airport to the hotel. But when they cleaned the streets, you literally had a 15-foot wall of snow on each side. And the cab driver and this is before GPS and all that, and the cab driver says, man, I never realized how visual of a driver he was. I don't even know half the names of these streets. And so he made like 10 wrong turns, but we finally found my hotel. But we were driving through like a maze. Do you even remember an 11-foot snowstorm?
No, there was one or two along the way, but there has been, I think that was around 93 or somewhere. Yeah. So quite typical, and to a Canadian, that's just a little bit of a challenge.
Dallas, if they had a quarter inch of snow, they would cancel all the schools. Thunder Bay, 11 feet, and business as usual. So talk about the journey of Invisalign. Is it expanding, contracting? Is it leveled out? What's the state of Invisalign today?
Well, great question, Howard. What's happening now is there's such a paradigm shift in orthodontics from conventional fixed devices, such as braces, to clear aligners. And we're pretty well able to look you in the eye now and say, whatever we could do with braces for you, we can do with Invisalign. And along with a couple of other things that I'm involved with that will segue to, we've now got it to the point where pretty well every case that comes in can be looked upon as an Invisalign case. And that's a fairly recent thing. And the changes come through new technology with the plastic, which has recently changed, attachments, the little bumps that we put on teeth to move teeth a little more efficiently, and the software technology, which has absolutely exploded and allowed us to do a lot more things that we couldn't have even imagined doing with Invisalign even 4 or 5 years ago.
I talk to a lot of these programmers at companies, and they say, we'll take CAD-CAM for instance.
Yes.
CAD-CAM's out for 20 years, but if you talk to the software developers in Germany, they say, well, the chips were so small 20 years ago. And the chips are doubling in strength every 24 months. So when you talk to the actual programmers, they say every 24 months we can do so much neater stuff because back every 2 years you go back, they were trying to limit the code and the function. So now that your horsepower doubles every 2 years, I mean, an iPhone has more computer processing than the Apollo that landed on the moon.
Relax.
So it's so they just have the power in the room and the function to everything. So what's the learning curve on something like this for an orthodontist?
Well, it has taken a bit of learning, and I was fortunate to be in what's called the master's program, which is a series of 3 sessions where we live and breathe and absolutely look upon every case as an Invisalign case. And I've had such great mentors in my life, and I'm so grateful to them. And they've it's been a fair investment in my time and continuing education, but also getting my team on board. That's another real barrier to making this happen in your office. You got to make sure the team is keen on it as well, or else it's
I've
not
had
gonna
some
happen.
great mentors too, mainly John Belushi and Chris Farley, and I'm the only living one left of those 3. But you said changes in plastic, changes in bumps. What if someone listening to you wanted to learn how to do that? Where would they learn that?
So Align Technology has been very supportive of us, both with live continuing education and also a lot of online resources that they have right through your VIP site. And also there's guys like me out there who will take you under their wing. Say you're a general practitioner and you'd like to do more and more Invisalign in your office. I'll be the guy that will actually be the little angel on your shoulder.
But you're an orthodontist.
Yes.
Orthodontists never talk to general dentists. I don't know if they think I have Legion's air disease, but no, I'm serious. It is a separate elite country club. I mean, when you go into Dentaltown, endodontists, periodontists, they all talk to general dentists except for the orthodontist. I mean, do you agree or disagree with that?
No, I do.
Where does that come from? Is it because I'm short, fat, bald, and don't bathe, or is it?
How do I answer that? I think of all the disciplines, orthodontists have been the most protective of their turf. And I actually look upon it in a different light, Howard, and that is that if I've got well-educated dentists that are doing some orthodontics, one of the big things I'm going to teach them is what not to do. And they're going to become better identifiers of malocclusion, and therefore more higher quality of referral from them as well. And it makes so much sense to me, but a lot of orthodontists, I would say, especially kind of the old guard, just no.
Every time I meet an orthodontist in one location who passed the $3 million mark,
Yes.
and is doing 3 to 4, they reversed the thinking in fear and scarcity and flipped over to hope, growth, and abundancy, and said to all the general dentists within a 20-minute drive, said, hey, if you did Invisalign or whatever, every Tuesday of the month, I got a little club here. Because they know the general dentist wants to do a $1,000 root canal and a $1,000 crown and be done with it. They don't want to drag it. So they all think they want to do this. He helps them all. And he says it's not even 24 months. And they're like, you know what? I ain't got time for this shit. And then they send them all to him. But by thinking and hoping and wanting to have a relationship, I mean, if you were helping me do some cases,
Yes.
and I decided I don't want to do this anymore because I want to be an implantologist, and then 24 months later they decide to quit. Oh, that's just 4 out of 5 of them. I want to do Invisalign, and then 2 years later change their mind. Oh, that's just 4 out of 5 of them.
Okay.
So these guys are like, I'm going to help all of you guys because I know 4 out of 5 of you in 24 months are going to say, don't I make more money doing a $1,000 crown in 1 hour than a $4,000 ortho case that takes 2.5 years? I mean, do you agree or disagree?
Absolutely, Howard, and I've seen that.
Man, how many times have you seen that?
Not 4 out of 5, but
I mean, seeing the
pretty,
orthodontists that help the locals, it's their best marketing plan.
Absolutely, and the vast majority of quality referrers in my area also do some orthodontics. And the other thing they know is I'm there. Like, say for whatever reason they get into trouble, there's a fair bit of insecurity with the general practitioner. What if this happens? What if the case starts opening up, or we get an open bite or something like that? They know that I'm there for them, and I'll actually take over the case for them as well, should they feel over their heads. And that sort of thing breeds an incredible relationship and a lifelong referral source as well. So I think those of us who have said just block out any dentist that's doing orthodontics are short-sighted.
So you're saying if you were in America, you do your first 10 cases on undocumented workers, and then if it goes south and Trump throws them over, builds a wall, they can't get back, you're all good.
Perfect.
Is that what you just said?
We call that geographic success.
Geographic success? Huh. But yeah, so I wish, like I own Orthotown. Yes. I'm not even allowed to go on my own website. I mean, it's just, I hope that culture changes over the years. Because, and then the other thing that's I think's wrong about that mindset is, in this country of ours that was already great, with 1/3 billion people,
yes.
Half live in 147 cities,
okay.
Half live in 19,000 towns, and 20% of those towns don't, 14% of those towns don't even have a dentist, and 20% of those towns don't have any specialists. So if you're a state-sponsored dental school paid by the taxpayers, and you send a general dentist back to Bumblebutt, Oklahoma, but you didn't teach him any orthodontics in school, and then he says to the deal, well, you got to drive an hour and a half to Oklahoma City, and Mom says I ain't driving. Yeah. So then he tries it, and I'm like, well, why? And then you go to any dental school, and they graduate and they don't learn any orthodontics. They say, well, if you want to learn orthodontics, go to orthodontic school. Well, that's an arrogant attitude. Yes. To send back a doctor of dental surgery to a village of 5,000 people. There's no specialist, and they're going to have to do some part-time oral surgery, endodontics, periodontics, prosthodontics. You know what I mean? And so I wish that wall would come down. Luis Carrier,
yes,
from Barcelona, Spain. Yes. He's become one of the most famous orthodontists in the world. Henry Schein's always got him out. Talk about Luis and what has he got you excited about?
Okay, thank you, Howard. So he's part of my the trilogy of things that I'm hoping we will talk about, and his big thing is fix front to back changes first before you get into either braces or aligners. So say someone has a really bad class 2, he'll get him into class 1 even before he puts on any sort of orthodontic devices. Similarly, class 3, he'll get them back into class 1. And so his devices have become such an integral part of my whole setup. And I've worked with them a lot. I've been over to Barcelona a couple of times. They forced me to go, and
that's when was the Olympics there?
Oh, right. Oh, gosh, that was. Zach, you got your Google machine there?
In Barcelona, I mean, no offense to Spain, but Barcelona is kind of a hotter resort than Madrid, would you say?
Very much so. I've been to both, and the Mediterranean Sea, you can't beat it.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah.
1992. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, and Spain, if you don't want to retire in Barcelona, you just have never been to Spain.
Right.
And where else would you want to retire?
You're right, Howard. Well, Ibiza maybe, but that's a little...
Ibiza?
It's the island kind of resort with where they have all the wild parties and everything. But
off of Spain?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We'll have to have a Dentaltown meeting there.
We must. We will. So what I talk about, Howard, is certain things Invisalign can't do, or can't do very well. One is side-to-side change, like making people wider on top. So we have our expanders and that sort of thing that we use. Front-to-back differences, it's not that strong with. We do use rubber bands and that sort of thing, and selective distalization. But if we can get them into class 1 before we even start Invisalign, that is such a win. And then the time that they're in Invisalign is a lot shorter, and the result is much more predictable. So Carrier is a big part of my my approach to cases that need AP change before we actually get into orthodontics.
And how does it actually work?
So what it is these bars. In class 2, it has a articulating piece that goes on the back molar, and then a piece that goes on the canine. And what we do is we derotate the upper molar, which is a big part of the class 2 in many cases, and it will also take and distalize the posterior segment on the maxilla. And then because we're using class 2 elastics, we also get a secondary effect on the mandible where it comes forward. Similarly, in class 3s, it's kind of the opposite. That it's a lower bar that runs to upper molars. And it works well, and it works fast. And Carrier talks about changing things in a straight line before you start interfering with it. by having stuff around the front. So that's the key to his success. And he's now come up with aesthetic devices that are much better looking, and it's happening quite fast as well.
And let's go back. Instead of you telling us how to go from Phoenix to Winnipeg, why don't we first talk about why do I want to go to Phoenix, Winnipeg? Back to Invisalign. I understand why adults want it, because let's say I'm in sales, I sell real estate. I don't really, maybe I don't want to. I don't know. But it seems like the girls, the kids, they love the rubber bands. I mean, when I'm with my nieces and nephews and all that, they want to change them for Halloween to black and orange. And so who wants rubber bands, and who wants fixed, and who wants Invisalign?
Wow, great question. And there's been a real shift lately, Howard. And kids are growing up so early these days, it seems. So we find, especially young ladies, they'll forego the colors and the elastics and that sort of thing if we offer them Invisalign. So it's
At what age? Like in high school?
Yeah. Yes.
In high school?
And also junior high, like ninth. That Invisalign is rather popular in that group.
So in high school,
Yes.
high school girls, Invisalign, because it kind of seemed like, this is the way I read it. So I was born in 62.
Yes.
And in those days, you know, big Catholic families in Kansas, only the ugliest, messed up daughter would get the braces. You know, the one that you'd look at her and say, okay, no one's going to marry her. She's going to have to be a Catholic nun. We'll put all the money in that girl so she can make us grandchildren.
Okay.
Now, with birth control and the family shrunk to 2 kids, now just everyone gets ortho. So it almost seemed like that generation understood it was a status symbol, that because when we were little, you know, only rich kids got braces, and if you had 7 kids in the family, only one got braces, and it would never be a boy. You could just hit him over the head with a shovel and make another one. It was always the girl. But now, so when it became a status symbol, like if you buy a BMW, you want the logo, or a Mercedes, what you want. It seemed like for a while there, that the girls wanted braces and bands because it's a status symbol. Like, I'm a rich princess with braces. But now you're saying that that's changing into Invisalign?
Yeah, indeed, Howard. And the advantages are they're a lot less hassle. A lot of the kids are, you know, they're getting into acting and singing and those sorts of things. And they also play musical instruments. It's a lot easier with Invisalign and that sort of thing. So we're seeing less and less of that demand for the colors. Maybe in the really young kids, we still see that a lot. I've seen one where the little attachments, you can actually put a little food coloring into the attachments if you'd like, just to give them color. It's kind of counterintuitive to the whole invisibility thing. But generally, I see a trend toward much more use of clear aligners, even in teens and tweens as well. Like even
What's
in
a tween?
Between a child and a teen.
Oh, a teen and a tween?
Hadn't heard that one before.
So a tween is younger than a teen.
That's it. Yeah.
So it's a child,
tween,
teen, and teen.
Yeah.
And
somewhere in there, you want to mail them away, and then they come back after that as adults. Yeah.
huh. So the thing with orthodontics that I worry about is some of these people do these short-term ortho classes, or they go to a weekend course, and in orthodontics, I mean, you got to understand the diagnosis and dreamline. I mean, you got to, in ortho, you have to get an A in diagnosis. I'd rather get an A in diagnosis and a C in the treatment than flunk the diagnosis and it all goes south. So my question is, first of all, does it bother you when people go to short-term ortho classes and weekend Invisalign classes before they've taken a full didactic? Like orthodontists will not teach general dentistry in the United States. The only board certified orthodontist in the United States of America who will do it is FORCE, Richard Litt.
Yeah.
And the FORCE stands for Faculty Orthodontic Research Continuing Education.
Yes.
And he's just a ballsy guy, and he was the director of ortho in San Fran and Detroit.
Yes.
And he said, I don't care. He said, these guys are doing ortho. Someone has to teach them. We just can't all say, no, we're not going to teach them. But do you think they should take a full ortho curriculum before they start doing short-term and Invisalign without understanding tracing a ceph and doing the whole workup?
Howard, absolutely. And I think it's the missing link, like you say. And there are a lot of companies out there that do a weekend course, and all of a sudden they're into full-blown orthodontics. without having that solid background in esoteric knowledge and the whole baseline. So it does concern me, actually, and I'm kind of in the Richard Litt's camp in that, yep, they're going to do it, so let's find some of our best teachers and be open-minded about it. And I think that's going to raise all the boats.
And who's doing it? And who's that guy in Australia?
Garrity, I think it is. Or,
no, in Australia, in Sydney.
Maloney?
Yeah. What's his name? Maloney. Rick Maloney? What's Maloney's first name? Derek Maloney.
Yeah, yes.
He started teaching the general dentist in Sydney. So what does he have now? Now he has 4 offices, north, south, east, west, with 4 full-time orthodontic associates in each one. Probably the richest orthodontist in the world. Yes. Because he knew all these general dentists in Sydney were going to do it with or without him. So he's like, dude, if you guys are doing this, come to my study club. He says the same thing. He says, everyone does it. Everyone gets involved with it. But Crown and Bridge is so much money per unit. I mean, you can do an $800 or $1,000 crown literally in 30 minutes if you're fast, yes, or an hour and a half. So a 2-year ortho case, you know, it's just they lose interest in it.
I agree.
They lose a lot of interest in it.
With apologies to Derek, it's Mahoney.
Derek Mahoney,
yeah,
what did I say?
I said Maloney, I'm sorry.
Oh, Maloney.
Sorry, Derek, yeah.
Well, he's drinking a bottle of wine right now, so
yeah, he's okay.
He's okay either way.
Emirates Lounge. Yeah.
And so I had dinner with him at the foot of the Opera House, and oh my God, he's so fun to go out to dinner with.
Neat.
Every bottle of wine that goes by, it gets even more fun. So are you teaching a curriculum now? I mean,
right. So what I've been doing is working with Henry Schein Orthodontics and also with Invisalign and Propel. And my quest is to become well known in the GP community so that I can be a trusted individual who's willing to share with general practitioners some of the things.
So you think that someday an American's going to trust a Canadian? Are you out of your mind?
Look at this.
Well, hey, if Dentaltown would love to support you, like we so we have our 15th annual townie meeting, okay, and it's every April, yes, April 1921. It's in Caesar's Palace. We've done it 15 years, but next year 3 out of 4 Americans live east of Mississippi River. So next year we're actually going to do Orlando. But anyway, okay, but that department, we only, you know, they got to do other stuff year round. So we put on course. But how many segments is your course? Is it right?
So what I've done is a 4-segment course, Howard, and the first part is all that you discussed, the diagnosis, record taking is so important in orthodontics, of course, that we keep excellent records, and then treatment plan, and then in between the students work up cases and they submit them.
So
and now, of course, everything's
it's 4 weekends.
Yes.
Well, if you ever want us to partner with you or whatever and do a 4-weekend course right here in Phoenix, yeah, for the west side and Orlando for the east side, you just tell me when and where, and I'll make sure 250,000 townies all know about it. So however you want to do that, that's just an option.
Amazing.
That's an option that's always there for you. Because I'm your biggest fan. I really do. I really. And I don't believe anything Claudia Lovato said about you.
Okay,
Claudia, it wasn't true, was it? And so when I go to an American and I say braces, the first 2 things they're going to say is, damn, that's expensive, and I don't want to spend 2 years. And I said, back when I first learned about ortho in dental school, that if someone could come out with a 24-hour orthodontic solution, they could charge $10,000. It's not the $6,000. It's the 2 years that gets people to say no. So now there's a couple of technologies, Propel, yes, trying to propel it to go faster. Does Propel really make it go any faster?
Yeah, okay. So that's the third piece of my secret, Howard, and that is orthodontic acceleration has become very mainstream in my offices. And we're able to move teeth about 2 times as fast as we were before. And it has to do, to our patients, we talk about softening the bone. And that's kind of what happens, actually. It's a temporary injury, and we cause an inflammatory response. Cytokines and then osteoclasts come to the scene to repair the injury, and they're the ones that move the teeth fast. So how
does it actually work?
we actually put little holes, micro osteoperforation, right through the mucosa. There's no flap or anything like that. Tiny bit of anesthetic, and then we put these perforations into the bone through the.
Is it in between the teeth?
Yes.
Is it apical to the teeth?
Between the roots, and it lasts about 12 weeks altogether. The effect. And we know
3
that
months.
Yes, and it has a halo of about 8 to 10 millimeters of effect. So
8 to 10 millimeter radius
in
or
3
diameter?
dimensions. So it's diameter. Yes, it's like a bubble all the way around.
And how wide would the bubble be? Would that be 8 to 10 millimeters?
That's it. Yeah. So
So it'd be a 10 millimeter diameter from the injury.
that's it. Yeah, and so we get teeth moving faster and more predictably. And one thing that I'm into lately is using Propel to make impossible movements possible. And what I talk about there is a tooth stops moving, basically. It gets stuck or bogged down. We're actually using Propel to reactivate it and get it to move again. So pretty exciting. So it's the microosteoperforation, and they also have vibration technology now too, and it's especially useful for Invisalign because it seats the aligners. And Invisalign has recently gone to 1 week intervals, so that's basically cut the time in half. And now
1 week intervals or 2 week?
1 week. So
you get a different tray every week?
that's it, every week.
Oh, every week if you're using Propel.
Yes, but in general, it's about a week. And now with Propel, there's some individuals, including the guy who's about to speak right now, Thomas Shipley, who's in 3-day intervals with his. So he uses Propel and 3-day intervals and the vibration, and that.
So
causes it.
now vibration is another technology.
Yes.
What's the vibration technology?
Propel has a product called V Pro 5.
V Pro 5.
And it's high frequency vibration. And in patients.
Now, could they just use their own vibrator from home, or is this a different type?
They're a little slightly different design. It's more
They're
of a-
slightly different design.
more of
It's
a
shaped
bite
differently.
plane. Yeah.
So it's a bite plane.
Yes, and it vibrates, and it seats the aligners really well. And also, I'm using it a little bit off-label with braces as well because it causes increased blood flow and more predictable movement, even with braces as well.
And some people think that, like going back to brackets.
Yes.
That when you have the brackets in there, that just the vibration, just settling all the wires, and that could be a week's worth of unraveling, vibrated to place instantly.
Indeed. So
are you
we talk
using the
about artwork.
vibrator and the Propel?
That's it. So and we're finding a synergistic effect between the two. So we hit them with the Propel, follow up with the vibration, and it seems to be the holy grail of acceleration.
Back to your lecturing to general dentists. What we have found is that when people put up a 1-hour online CE course, well, first of all, who's taking CE?
Yes.
They're going to be taking online CE if they're under 35. And they'll go to like endo and they'll see like that anybody who puts up like a 1-hour lecture, their invitational skyrocket.
Yes.
Their attendance skyrocket. It's kind of like if you want to be a movie star, you'd have a demo and you go to Hollywood with your demo tape.
Sure.
But if you would do an online CE course and people get to know you, because I love you, I think you're just an amazing guy. They would get to see you and they say, yeah, I trust this guy, I like this guy, I want to listen to him. But if you put up an online CE series, and the other thing is with ortho and implants, you can't be an implantologist and orthodontist without ever physically going someplace and ask you a question, bending a wire, talk. They can't learn everything on their iPhone and their big screen. But I wish you'd put up some online CE courses. And then, like say, if you're an orthodontist and you're not really into promoting, I mean, we got the promotion machine at Dentaltown to put on the hands-on courses. I want to ask you, do you get some more time or you need to go?
No, I'm great, Howard.
A lot of people are talking about self-ligating wires. Is that just so that you don't have to use a rubber band?
Well, it's self-ligation. Yes, it's a different way of closing around the wire, but the big deal with it is a lot less friction. So you talked about.
So it's not really replacing the rubber band that's the big thing.
Really not. It's more just eliminating. When most of these self-ligating doors close, it becomes a tube. So there's very little friction for the wire, and that makes tooth movement much more efficient and faster. And add in vibration to that, and like you just said, you're going to unbind the wires and it's going to move it that much faster. So the whole trend has been much lighter forces, but constant in a non-friction environment, and that's the absolute best way to move teeth without as much damage as well. We're seeing a lot less things like root resorption. And
I know you or would rather one of your options is all Invisalign. So
Yes.
I feel old school asking you, still asking
That's
you
okay.
stuff. A lot of people are confused on a molar, band or bracket.
So I think the shift there has come with the quality of our adhesives, and no longer do you really need a band around a molar. The concern before was if we're using extra things and hooking them onto molars, it would be too much stress on a adhesive. But nowadays with our adhesives so good that I don't use half as many bands as I once did.
So when you say you don't use half as many, why do you use the half that you use?
They're still useful in young kids who are maybe a little less compliant with avoiding certain foods and that sort of thing. A band will be more durable to that. Sometimes when we're using things like lingual arches and that sort of thing, or we're hooking bars across the top of a mouth, we need a band with something on the lingual as well. So.
And a lot of general dentists will tell you that that in their area, half the orthodontists will include second molars, and the other half never includes second molars. And sometimes they're confused because they'll see like this great ortho case,
Yeah.
and then the second molar is like pointing 3 different ways. What's your thoughts on including second molars in ortho?
Great one. This is one of my big soapboxes, and my pedigree is Ronald Roth from many, many years ago, and he would say, if you don't include second molars and you don't have them lined up and you don't have them in inclusion, you're asking for long-term instability, temporomandibular joint trouble, wear on the teeth, and just nothing but awful.
So the same things that happen when you get married: instability,
Yeah.
TMJ, stress, relapse. Okay.
I'm not a good one to talk about marriage. I'm down 2 now.
You're down.
Yeah.
You're down 2. Oh, we're tied.
Okay.
We're tied. We're down. We're both
not a great
0 for 2.
Sorry, but I'm a much better orthodontist than I am a spouse. So, however, so the idea is, yes, we got to get on second molars, and he talked about orthodontics being full mouth reconstruction in natural teeth, and I still believe in that, and I agree with it. And to our detriment, a lot of my colleagues don't worry as much as they should about second
Well,
molars.
Invisalign would always pick up the second molar.
Right? Because
That-
we get
so
back
that's
there
one
with the
advantage,
scanner.
right?
That's the key thing.
So,
yes.
so one advantage of Invisalign is you're always picking up the second molar.
Yes.
What percent of the United States, we mail Orthotown magazine to 10,600 orthodontists in America.
Oh, wow, okay.
What percent of them 10,600 in when they're using brackets, wires would pick up the second molar?
Wow. Okay. Good one. I would say the younger ones more and more are being more careful about it, Howard. But generally, about half of them won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of those cases look crazy because you have this beautiful case and these second molars are dog-legging right, left, up, down. Yeah. So you would pick up the second molar and you would just cement a bracket. You wouldn't even band it.
No. Vast majority of them were not banding anymore unless they have a large restoration on them or a gold crown. Some of those materials are harder for us to bond to.
Now I want to get into the controversial parts. It seems like at 54 laps around the sun, you start to see a lot of patterns in human behavior. Like for instance, in the Catholic Church, 20% always thought it was the end of the world, all that stuff. Well, you go in, I got my MBA, you go into Wall Street, 20% of them buy gold, it's all going to crash. You go into occlusion, and 20%, I mean, they're just fanatics. I mean, it's like, they're just like, I actually think they're batshit crazy.
Yes.
And in ortho with the GPs, it's the non-extraction. You could never, and it's like, I'm a little weary of the word never. Like when you say you never use amalgam, really? You have no indication to where an inert plastic being glued in would not be a good idea. Like, I don't know, let's say a subgingival class 5 on a grandma with Alzheimer's. Really? That's a good place to bond? When you do your resins and they last 6 months in geriatric dentistry, and amalgam will last 3 to 5 years. But when a general dentist stops referring to an orthodontist because he did a bicuspid extraction, I mean, isn't that a little extremist? I mean, I get it that in the 50s it was probably used too much.
Yes.
But do you think in 2017 you can say there's a case for never do for bicuspid extraction?
Wow. Great question, Howard. And I too, when I hear the words always and never, especially from a presenter, it makes my spider senses tingle, because hardly ever do we see cases like an entire year of cases where you would not extract teeth. And in particular, I would say someone like, if someone's crowded and they're like this, then that's quite a bit different than if they're crowded and they're like this, and they're like an open bite and they've got protrusion and that sort of thing. Those ones, if you don't extract on them, they will look awful. And today we're talking about working from the soft tissue back, and so I look upon each individual case and take it on its own merits, and looking at things like the soft tissue, the relationship between the upper and lower jaws. And yes, we still extract, probably less than when I first came out of graduate school, but there still is a place. And one other thing that you and I talked about before, Howard, is different cultures coming together and having children. It makes for some of the wackiest malocclusions, particular a Asian mom and a Caucasian dad. The shape of their jaws versus the shape of their teeth or the size of their teeth, a lot of those, there's just absolutely no other alternative.
The craziest case I ever had was an Arizona Cardinal, 6'6", African American. He weighed 280 pounds with a six-pack.
Okay.
And his little blonde wife, who was 5 foot tall and weighed 100 pounds. And they brought me her daughter, and she had mom's jaws and dad's teeth. I had to pull 9 teeth, wisdom teeth, 4-bys, and a lower central. And then the existing teeth, I had to shorten them all 2 millimeters. And when I was done, they loved it. But if you just said no extraction, she would have looked like a donkey. Sure. She just would have been, it just would have been crazy. And well, let's get to that, because I think if you ask me, what is the number one problem in orthodontics today? I would say that when you talk to an anthropologist, they say, go back 400 years, we don't see almost any malocclusions going back 2 million years. And then 400 years ago, it starts popping up, and by 100 years, everyone has it.
Yes.
And the anthropologists who are not dentists or not orthodontists, they don't even have a dog in this race.
Yes.
They say that as you went from that for 2 million years, 100 billion sapiens, they would be picking up carcasses and gnawing and getting vegetables that weren't cooked and purified, and they would nurse for 2 years. Yes. And that when you're nursing, that the boob is pushing on the face and flattening the jaw, and that it was going to a bottle and a sippy cup, and then eating this Gerber applesauce shit in a jar. Yes. Is actually what's causing. So it seems like orthodontists always talk about how to treat.
Yes. But
they're not going on Oprah Winfrey and the news, which you should be. I have a face for radio. You have a face for TV. You're a handsome, dapper man. You should be on all these talk shows saying, because I look at millennials as like the baby has just a little bit of difficulty nursing.
Yes. And
she's like fighting or crying. So they instantly switch to a bottle and a sippy cup.
Yes.
And then you say, what's for dinner? Did you find some animal hit by a car on the road where your kid's got a fight with this? Oh no, it's just a sauce. So then there's no forces, and then that's what the anthropologists say. They're not orthodontists. Do you agree with the anthropologists or disagree?
No, honestly, I believe there is something to that, but there's 2 other things as well, in my opinion, that have well, basically 3. One is the heterogeneity of our population,
which you call miscegenation.
We can do that.
Is that the term that you still use?
Perfect.
Which is mixed breeding.
There you go. And we're all over it for sure. The second one is put someone in the 21st century, and you're going to introduce a lot of stress into their lives. And we see this later on in life, where parafunction, clenching and grinding, is contributing to malocclusion. And the classic lower incisor crowding, which pretty well everybody seems to be prone to, we think that that's part of it, is the parafunction. And then the third one is just more recognition of malocclusion and more demand for its repair. The Cro-Magnon man probably didn't have to worry quite as much, but the 13-year-old female in today's society, it's a big deal. And so I think those are the trends that we've been working with, Howard, and it's made the outlook bright for orthodontics. And it's such a gift to give to your child, and it can be a real life changer.
But you still have 5,000 oral surgeons telling moms on consults, well, you see how those bottom teeth are starting to shift? Those impacted wisdom teeth are pushing, and those books are going to collapse, and your daughter had braces, and we don't get those 4 wisdom teeth out, that's going to collapse. But true or false?
Right. Okay, so I think anthropologically our jaws are getting shorter, and the usefulness of wisdom teeth has decreased over our evolution. But I think the extraction of wisdom teeth in general is overdone, and we've been unable to put a direct cause and effect relationship to late onset crowding and wisdom teeth. But mom and dad put it together, like it's kind of like the domino effect, and they get that, and there are other reasons often to have your wisdom teeth out anyway. So we're still kind of supportive of that, but in general, I think it's overdone.
Well, I think Germany is one of the smartest countries I've ever been to. I mean, Germany it's one of the most advanced civilizations on earth, in my opinion. And their wisdom tooth extraction has dropped 2/3 in the last decade. And those oral surgeons over there are saying, you know what? I mean, the research is there for some cases, but anytime I talk to an oral surgeon in Germany, they say, yeah, you know, when you read the research, I've stopped removing about 2 out of 3 cases. They're basically moving to implantology, and they're getting away from routine exodontia. And anybody, again, who says, well, wisdom teeth, they all got to come out. I mean, that's an extremist thinking. I mean, if you say all wisdom teeth need to come out, you're nuts.
Yeah.
And if you say that you can't ever do 4 bicuspid extraction, you're not a doctor, you're a quack. You know, you're a nut. And I'll even take as far as with amalgam. I mean, amalgam lasts 38 years, and you drop that and replace it with inert plastic that's lasting 6.5, and you say, oh, well, not mine, I'm special. Well, you're not special. And read the research. I mean, there's insurance companies that are crunching 100 million dental insurance claims, and they're showing that on a first molar root canal, when a general dentist does it, in 5 years, 10% have been extracted. We're not talking about the root canal failed. We're talking about the tooth's no longer in the mouth. And what's funny with that is with endodontists, so dentists have a 90% first molar 5-year survival rate. Endodontists only 95%. So the difference between a general dentist and an endodontist is just 1 in 20 teeth, 5% in 5 years. And again, we're not talking about, well, is that working? Is that failed? Does it need retrieved? We're talking just the category. The tooth is no longer in the mouth. And so now let's, I'm 3/4 done with you. I want to switch to the other hard part. So we talked about ortho. The biggest barrier to entry is it's a 2-year commitment. You know, I don't know if I'm committed that long. The other one's cost. Talk about the business of orthodontics. How do you sell a $6,000 ortho case? The dentists are always trying to tell mom to get upper 10 veneers, but when you look at the natural order of sapien, mom is 100 times more likely to spend on baby than she is on herself, and she'll never spend it on grandma, because I mean she's looking at grandma thinking, okay, you'll be in heaven in like 6 weeks. But pumpkin here is only 12. So is like say back in the day, ortho, when I was little, ortho was only kids. So it's starting to shift for adults, but talk about the business. What percent is it mom paying for kids? What percent is an adult? Do you self-finance? Do you ask for a third down? Do you just tell me the business of orthodontics?
Okay, Howard, and that's changed recently as well, and it has to do with the changing demographic of the average orthodontic patient. It's pretty accessible to just about everybody. In our office, we kind of have an open policy about how it's paid for. Usually we're not that flexible on how much eventually we're going to get, but we're sure flexible in how we get it and how we divide it up. Like you say, we're usually together for a long time, although it's shortening these days with acceleration. So we'll just say, we have a little thing that we put in our office. We have really sharp treatment coordinators, and basically they present the case like we usually would, with the initial, 1/4 down, and then monthlies after that, and then we watch. And then there's a flinch there, so we go, well, the initial payment can be divided up. Still a flinch. So then we talk about how we can just start with monthly payments and go through the whole treatment like that, still with no sort of financing and that sort of thing. However, if that isn't an option, then there are indeed third-party financiers out there. But we don't use them all that much.
What percent are you self-financing?
Yeah, almost 100. We do have those third-party financiers. The neat thing about them is we get all the money up front, which is kind of nice, and then the collection issue is theirs. However, in vast majority of cases, we can do it without interest and without any harm to the patient, just by dividing things out over time. And we have very high collection percentages. Because
like
we're
what
friendly
percent?
to people, like in the 95 to 96%.
95.
Of course,
and how many months are you average financing? Probably the length of a case. So what do you say your average
try and
length
be a
of a case is?
little bit under the length of the case.
So what was that?
We try
12
and
months,
finance it
18
over
months?
about 12 months, because most of our cases now are falling in, even the really tough ones are in around 18 months or so. So we try and keep that financial part
Over
ahead,
12 months.
if you can. Yes, but if we'll go further out, and even like some of these Invisalign cases now where we're using acceleration, they're coming in, really short for doing fairly dramatic things. So we do try and separate the money from the medicine as much as we can, and we've redefined our retention as still a part of the treatment. So people understand that there's still going to be monthly payments even as we're holding them, and we still see the child in that. So in general,
the orthodontic fee doesn't cover the retention fee?
It's usually included in the whole overall fee, but we're okay with them still paying monthlies even after the active treatment is done. And they seem okay too. And most people understand. It's kind of like buying a car. Like say you get rid of the car at 12 months, but you're in a 2-year contract. They know that year is still, they're still responsible for it, sort of thing. So that's how we've looked upon it, and we've been very upfront with people, very clear. We have them sign contracts, and we usually have pre-authorized hits on their credit card every month.
And they sign a contract that you can ding their credit card?
Yes.
Yeah. And what is that called? Is that? Do you know the technical term for that?
Right. So I know in the United States it might be a little bit different about how they do that, but in Canada it's just a pre-authorized debit or credit card.
Yeah, because that's where the big money is. Like you talk about these big chain gyms.
Yes.
And I don't want to mention names 'cause I don't want to get in trouble by like Lifetime Fitness, but
Okay.
so when you sign up, they get permission to ding your credit card every month.
Right.
Well, the average person only goes to the gym for 8 months. Yeah. But the average person takes 40 months to be organized enough to quit billing your. Same with online music, like Spotify and all these music. They say, well, it's $4.99 a month and unlimited music. Yeah. That's a great idea. And then 3 months later, you don't even use it. Some people have deleted their app and haven't even deleted their $4.99. So they'll be dinged into perpetuity. Yes. And so having permission to bill your credit card every single month until the case is done is a gold mine.
Yes.
I mean, you figure 30 years ago, we had to get post-dated checks where they'd have to write out all these. If we're going to carry it over a year, they'd have to write out 12 checks. So let's talk about the hardest thing about orthodontics, which no one ever really talks about, which is retention of the lower anteriors, because everybody gets braces. Are you good with taking them off? Oh, yeah, they look beautiful. And then 24 months later, what's happened? So talk about retainers. And is it different for an Invisalign case than a fixed wire case? Because some people say, well, if you do Invisalign, the retainers is the last tray. Yes. Do you agree with that?
Yes. So my thinking with the retainers has come a circle. We used to use a lot of fixed retainers, but I'll paint you 2 scenarios, Howard. One is 2 years later, a kid comes back, my retainer has failed, and their teeth have moved a bit. Think of that one. And then I've given them a removable retainer, and I've given them a routine to keep themselves straight. They didn't do it, and they come back 2 years later, and their teeth have moved. The first scenario, I'm going to feel responsible for, and I'm going to probably fix it, and I'm probably not going to charge them. The second scenario, we told you. you have to put in that retainer every second night, and if it's tight, you got to wear it more often. So therefore, it's their responsibility. With Invisalign, like you say, they've got some great systems now where the kid doesn't even have to come back because we have a scan into perpetuity in the cloud somewhere, and we can just grab it and make them a new retainer without even seeing them. So in general, our retainers are clear, removable, and it's the patient's responsibility, and the patient's very, very informed on that. So we call it self-monitor. We don't call it a dismissal from our office or retention. We call it self-monitoring. And the key is self. It's your responsibility. We give you the tools. If you lose it or if it breaks, come on back. We'll give you a new one. There's going to be a cost for that. If you choose to let your teeth go and you come back, you got to know it's a new malocclusion, and we're going to.
And are you keeping these scans in your computer, or does Invisalign keep that into perpetuity?
I can only imagine Invisalign's storage right now.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible. So the answer is they have them. So we usually
How long will they keep them?
Taro scanner. They'll be into infinity. So,
Right.
yeah.
So someday when we're in hell,
Yes.
we'll be able to call up to Costa Rica
To get a new-
and get our retainers sent down to us.
Yes.
Huh. It seems like lately another big part of ortho. I mean, it used to be straightening the teeth. When I got out of school in '87, then within 10 years, it was like, okay, you got to braces and bleach your teeth.
Yes.
So you're gonna get ortho and bleaching. That was a 10-year deal. Now I'm starting to see a lot of, I'm going to get ortho, then I'm going to bleach my teeth, then I'm going to get Botox and Dermafill. And
Yes.
so it seems like it's moving from the hard structure to the soft structure. Are you seeing that?
Very much, Howard. And
by the way, I've had no Botox. You're thinking, oh, he's had a lot of work done. This is all natural.
hard to believe.
Hard to believe. And I'm not wearing a wig. This is all natural hair, too.
Yes.
So, but are you seeing the trend
Definite
towards
trend.
jumping into the soft tissue?
Indeed, and I think it's our responsibility right from the get-go, from a little kid, and it's part of what we're learning about in the next room, is to start with the soft tissue and think about where we're placing teeth and jaws to be as supportive as we can, and not just this year or next year, but how about when they're 50, 60? What are they going to look like? And then we add into that a lot of things that have become popular, dermal fillers and Botox. And it's kind of the magic wand. One of the speakers tomorrow is going to be talking
Are you
about
doing
that.
that?
I am not. I can. I legally in one of the provinces that I practice in,
But when
I
you
haven't
can't,
gone
when
through
you
it yet.
can?
Yeah. So it's a province-specific thing, and I believe it's statewide. It's state-specific here.
Yeah.
But it's something that I want to make sure I'm doing it well before I actually get into
So
it.
do you think this is going to grow more and more in popularity?
Absolutely.
And by the way, you're so nice letting me talk to you so long. I get to ask you so many questions. A lot of people are wondering, especially the ones my age, they have a pano and a SAF.
Yes.
Is there really an advantage in orthodontics? We know it's an advantage in implantology, extraction, but in orthodontics, is it really an advantage to go from a 2D pano SAF to a 3D CBCT?
Yeah, honestly, and that too is one of the subjects we're exploring today in this symposium, Howard. And basically, the two things that I see that are very useful are you can see soft tissue in 3 dimensions so much better. And of course, we're so concerned these days about airway. And it's kind of neat that we can visualize that in a growing individual and address it early so that later on in life they don't have to deal with obstructive sleep apnea or even having to deal with CPAP and that sort of thing. So I think that it is valuable, and maybe 10 years from now it'll be the gold standard. Maybe not even that long. Things change so quickly. 5 years from now it'll be the gold standards.
But again, on by sleep apnea, what grinds my gears is, again, they're talking about it so much, and I understand. You said there are 3 variables in malocclusion. You said it was miscegenation, mixed
Yes.
breeding.
Yes.
And by the way, like last year, I lectured in 6 of the 7 continents.
Okay.
Most countries, I don't think most Americans know, but it's only the U.S. and Canada and England, which is just a complete hodgepodge of people.
Yes.
But you go to Vietnam, they're mostly Vietnamese. You go to Cambodia, they're all Cambodian. You go to Malaysia, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Most of your countries are predominantly one person. And then your country, Canada, is the, first of all, it's the highestly educated country. 55% of Canadian adults have a college degree. Crazy. Yes. And it's also the highest percent of the citizens that weren't born in your country. And but when you go to when you see children in Canada, they're all Heinz 57 mutts. I mean, they got a part of everything. So I know that's a big part. But I still see. I go to friends' house, and I'll see a 4-year-old laying on that couch, grinding their teeth, having sleep apnea, having all these problems, and I'm going back to just 4 years ago. I know the mother didn't nurse him because she says, "Well, I tried and it didn't go well." It was like he was fighting, and I'm like, "Well, that was the good fight." Yes. And then you go to the houses. I was at a house the other day, and the mother is feeding almost the baby everything the baby eats. She throws it in a blender first, pulverizes it, and then feeds the child mush. And I'm like, this is, and the baby's 7 months old. It still hasn't had a force on its mandible or maxilla, nothing to spread the arch. So I see all these people about sleep apnea. I'm like, what about the babies right now who are nursing right now? And for the last 2 million years, since the first two of our species broke off, of those 100 billion sapiens that have come and gone, what percent of them used a bottle, a sippy cup, and had a blender puree their food? I mean, I think it's funny when you go to a restaurant, they get dinged because this food was out in the danger zone. So they're marking up the restaurant and finding it. Are you shitting me? For 2 million years, you'd walk up to a dead carcass that was killed by hyenas 3 days ago, and you'd sit down there and feast on that. That's how we got to this party. And now you're worried that the poultry was on the kitchen counter overnight. When I was a little kid and I'd wake up in the morning and someone left a cold plate of spaghetti, I thought, there is a God. And I'd sit down and eat all the cold spaghetti. So it still just seems like all this sleep apnea stuff is still misguided, because guys like you should be on TV saying, I mean, there just needs to be a massive education push that I don't care if your baby cries. She's going to starve to death or nurse out of your boob. Right. And if you don't feed it something that she's gnawing on, I mean, that baby should be picking up something and putting pressures and forces all over its face, or we're going to be talking about sleep apnea when they're as early as 4. I see a lot of pediatric sleep apnea at friends' houses.
Interesting.
Their own children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's the next frontier for us, and we're learning more and more, even at this symposium. So, and I think that's a place where the 3D imaging will help us as well.
In sleep apnea.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, I want to thank you for coming back. I've only brought a guest back. I think I brought just a couple back. DeTolo, and we're bringing Gordon back, but I brought you back. I'm your hugest fan. Anything I can do for your cause.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do for orthodontics, and again,
I appreciate it.